to be just a moderator here, so I will not take the time, but I just wanted to spend a couple of words explaining what this is and why we are here today. So time ago, together with Sebastiano Toffaletti, the GM of Digital SME Alliance, and other people, we agreed on the need to give visibility to European companies that are developing digital solutions, digital services, digital platforms. The problem is we have a lot of these solutions, we have a lot of these companies, and we are fragmented by all means across the 27 states, across the multiple hundreds of companies that do not have the chance maybe to show up and show what they do. The long story short is that we have a lot of extremely good technology. I'm very proud we have today 3 companies I'm really excited about. I mean, different occasions I had the chance to work with them under different vests, let me say, different roles. But Clever Cloud, Kabit, and Elemento, despite they are not big names, they have developed big technology, and they have a big vision, and they have a clear mission, and they are doing something that not many companies out there are doing. And another key characteristic is that they are, of course, European, French, Italian, doesn't matter, but they do what they sell. And I know this is a kind of a stupid statement, but I tell you one thing, I've been in the business for 40 years, and who has been in the business as long as me knows that when you speak to providers, you speak to commercial people, salespeople. Now, when you speak to a company where the makers, the doers are the same that are selling the product, you have all of a sudden something that nobody is capable to provide. You talk to people that can satisfy your needs, can understand your need, and will adapt their products to your needs. This is something that we have completely lost with the big tech companies because unfortunately, they are so big that they can dictate or tell us what we have to do and no more the other way around. So this is a big opportunity to let the people, my friends, speak, show what they do. Maybe we have some time at the end to make 1 or 2 questions in a roundtable, and I'm hoping that questions will arise from the audience. With that said, I will pass the floor to our guests. And Sophia, help me, I don't remember the order, but please introduce yourself, the next speaker.
Yeah, we will start with Enrico, we said.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. And
yeah, we're sharing the slides. Yes. Okay, perfect.
Okay, yes, I'm Enrico Signoretti, VP Product of Kabit, and today we will talk about our solution in the cloud space. Next slide, please. So Kabit is as a product called DS3, and DS3 is a software-defined geo-distributed cloud storage. Actually, the core of the product, as you can guess, is S3, so it's object storage, but we think about cloud storage because we provide a much broader product than just object storage, and I will delve into it later in the presentation. Next slide. The company, just to give you a little presentation about us, has more than 450 customers at the moment. We are considered one of the top 30 European deep tech scale-ups by the European Commission. We raised more than 500 million in funding, most notably from the biggest VCs in the UK, and it was the first time they invested in Italy, so we are very proud of it. And the technology is 100% European. Among our customers, you can see Leonardo, which is a huge defense company operating all across the world. TIM, which is the biggest Italian telco. Rai Way, which is the service provider of Rai, the national broadcaster for Italy, and many service providers. Consider that 65% of our customers are service providers. Next. So what we do with our technology, we solve a bunch of issues that many enterprises and service providers have. So on one end, we have the cost, especially now with the rise of AI, you live with a lot of data in your system. You need to manage budgetary problems and more the rising cost of storage in general. The other one that is huge at the moment, and you probably already know all the geopolitical tensions that we are living right now. So sovereignty, people are looking to ways to repatriate or geo-repatriate somehow their data. Security never left the table of the discussion. Of course, it's top of mind for all the CIOs in this world, and of course, data management. So now we have a lot of data segregated in different silos. Again, for AI is a problem, but also for security and in general to efficiency of the entire system. So what we do with Capit is we unlock a modern data strategy in the end to move beyond these traditional storage models. Next. So if we look at the left here, you see a traditional enterprise storage system. So when you have a file, you make a primary copy on a storage system, and then you have a secondary copy in a data center nearby for business continuity. And most of the time, you have a third copy for disaster recovery, maybe very distant from the first two data centers or in the cloud. This creates a huge amplification in the backend of your data. So that could be measured in 4 or 5 times the initial data that you store in the system. You have 3 systems to manage, and of course, all the mechanism is very inefficient. The way Capit does things is a little bit different. So we do all the encryption, data protection of the data at the very beginning of the process. And then, thanks to patented erasure coding mechanism, we distribute all these segments across network under your control. This allows you to save 50% of the storage footprint, also have better efficiency in the network, and manage a single system across multiple domains. So in the end, you have a very secure, very resilient, and very cost-effective system. Next. The way we do it in practice is through the Composer. So the Composer is our main product, but also the UI of the system. The Composer connects to the Coordinator, which we provide as a SaaS platform or an on-premises solution. And this is the control plane of the entire solution. The control plane then allows you to collect resources that could be anywhere in the public cloud, in your data centers, or even at the edge. Create a swarm, and the swarm is a pool of storage that is practically the geo-distributed cluster where you have all your data. On top of it, you design your data protection rules. It's a very simple process where you define where you want your data, the number of failures you can sustain, and so on. And in the end, you also deploy the gateways. The gateways are the front end of the system. So in the end, when you have a data written in one of the data centers, the data is immediately available in other data centers. And if something goes wrong, you have still access to your data, even without doing it, traditional failover and failback kind of operations that are usually necessary with traditional system. So the system is very resilient. You have this cloud experience that gives you a lot of flexibility, but tight control on data infrastructure and costs. Next. So the people choose us for several reasons. Of course, sovereignty at the moment is one of the biggest reasons, but the resilience and durability of the system is the other one. The system is also very resilient against ransomware, because if one of your data centers is attacked, the attacker finds only segments of encrypted data inside the servers, so they can't do anything. They can encrypt them again, but in the end, it's a failure like anything else. So there is no way to rebuild the data, to reconstruct the single file. So the attack doesn't produce anything. On the other hand, you have immediately the possibility to rebuild your data and restore integrity. Zero knowledge is another important aspect of the problem. Everything is encrypted with keys coming from the customer. So not even the manager of the coordinator can read the data stored by the single user. Multi-tenancy is another huge aspect of the product, and this is also why service providers like it. So you can create a tenant for each single user with different end users using the solution every day, different rules, different resources assigned to each tenant. And also you can define multi-swarm. So you can have swarms, for example, in Italy, in Germany, or anywhere else, and segregate information physically in a perimeter or in multiple perimeters. Everything is white labeled, and there is a web console that allows you to provide the service to the user directly without intervention of administrator. This makes a very useful tool for service provider wanting their customers having a self-service portal. The solution is very flexible, as I said multiple times already. So we use less power. Also, we are less expensive than traditional cloud system, and we run on any type of server. Actually, we can mix and match different generation of servers in the same cluster. Next. So we are compatible with everything S3 compatible today. Veeam is, for example, one of our partners, but you can think about any S3 compatible backup software. It's a good way to start. Practically, most of the customers start with backup because it's just the easiest way. But today, you can find S3 as a backend for NAS gateways, for big data, for AI, for many other use cases. Next. So the product in these days is available in two flavors. One is DS3 Cloud. DS3 Cloud is managed by our partners. Our partners are all service providers, so they build their infrastructure with our best practices, and then they provide the service to their customers. We work together with them in all across Europe and abroad. Or large service provider and enterprises, they can buy directly the DS3 Composer to build their infrastructure with all the characteristics that I described. Next. So just to give you an idea of the case histories, we already work in the defense industry, in the media industry, space, and healthcare. All these industries have a lot of in common. That is, the data is key for their business today, and of course the fact that we have a spectrum so large of industry that we serve talks a lot about what you can do with this technology. Next. And last but not least, we launched a few weeks ago an initiative, the first sovereign disaster recovery pack. Practically, we joined with SUSE, Elemento, and StorePool, and we are bringing to the market a very simple yet very effective way to migrate workloads from technology stacks that are mostly hosted by American companies or hyperscalers, and with our technology you can remove the kill switch and you are protected by the European laws. And with this is my presentations. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Enrico. I think there will be some questions at the end, but I would maybe
I was
first,
speaking with the mic close. I was going to say we will have to speak about the disaster recovery package later. So maybe now we give the floor to Axel and Clever Cloud. Axel.
Yes. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. So you're in charge of the slide, right? Yes, cool. Thank you very much. Yes, so thanks so much for this invitation, and I'm very pleased today to present the Clever Cloud in this context. So I do work on the public affairs as a part of Clever Cloud, but today I will try to explain and to translate how clear digital sovereignty can be translated into clear technical and answer to business needs thanks to innovations. Because we do have this belief that European digital sovereignty, it's for us, it's not something that is new or that is a opportunistic topic, but it's something that I would say has been part of our DNA since the creation of the company. Next. So basically, Clever Cloud is a European cloud provider, PaaS, and we have been founded in France back in 2010, and we are independent, we are organically grow, and our team is basically largely composed of engineers at about something like 70%. And our mission is very simple. We give developers, company, and public administrations more velocity, more reliability, and more control over their own digital infrastructures. But I think it's important to state what we do believe in. I think that like when it comes to the pure cloud industry, cloud computing has often been understood as the ability to rent infrastructure. So that can be a virtual machine, that can be storage, that can be a network of resources, that can be computer power. And in that particular model, the cloud provider had to give access to the infrastructure. So it had a lot to do with this notion of infrastructure, and the customer basically still has to operate a huge part of the stack. So that can be the server, that can be the operating system, that can be the database, that can be the scaling, that can be the monitoring, that can be the backup, that can be the security, which is useful, of course, but in our view, this is not the full promise of what cloud computing should be. I think that the real promise of a cloud is not simply to buy machines differently. The real promise is to consume digital services according to the actual usage. So with automation, elasticity, reliability, and operational simplicity. So yeah, in overall, I think that cloud should be a community, a layer that allow organization to focus on software, product, and of course, innovation, which is a core component of the notion of digital sovereignty, because we had this idea that when it comes to digital sovereignty, it's something that at the EU level that can be achieved only through the idea of innovation. And to innovate, we need to make sure that a developer can again sometimes. Next, yes. So yeah, so basically, as I said, like historically, many hosting and cloud models were based on selling machines. So a customer would choose the size of a server, the amount of CPU, the memory, the disk space, and the storage capacity. So at that time, the question was, how many machines do I need? How powerful should they be, and how long should they stay on? So this model actually still exists in many cloud environments, even when it's called cloud. It often remains close to the traditional infrastructure logic. And at Clever Cloud, we actually take a different approach. We do not believe that the customers should spend their time thinking about their machines, but they should think about the service. So applications, a workload, data, and business needs. So that's why our platform is designed to abstract away much of the infrastructure complexity, and hence a developer just simply push their code. So that's the primary basis of the platform as a services. And the platform automatically handles deployments, runtime, configuration, and the scaling. So yeah, so that's the main point of the platform as a service model. Next. So yeah, so that's the point of Clever Cloud. Teams can deploy the application in environment systems such as Node.js, such as Java, such as Python, such as PHP, and so on, and use a managed database and services without having to operate the underlying infrastructure of themselves. So the main target is actually to let organizations focus on software and less on servers. And so to do that, we consider that we need to answering the real premise of cloud, which is usage-based services. Because one of the most important aspects of our own cloud vision is basically the billing. We think that a good cloud services is not only about technical performance, but also about the ability to measure how usage is precisely and how we can bill services according to the actual consumptions. So how many machines are running, how long are they running, how much compute is consumed, and so how much storage is used per month. So yeah, so that's basically the ability to measure and to bill a usage, which is central to our cloud model. So that's why we do develop our own biling software, which is important because biling it's just not just an administrative function. In cloud computing, biling is part of the product. It allows a customer to pilot their own infrastructure, to understand their consumption, and to control their cost and align a technological usage with the business needs. So that's why our platform is able to build services in a precise and granular way, depending on the actual resource to consume. And this is a key differentiator because many cloud biling models are still strongly connected to the infrastructure units, such as virtual machines and the reserved capacity. Next. We also saw something that was quite interesting. It's the fact that the cloud market is becoming increasingly fragmented. So now organizations do not just consume raw infrastructure, but they also consume databases, application, runtimes, storage, Kubernetes, a workload. So for example, an organization may use a tool like a Metabase, and in that case, the customer wants not a virtual machine. They want a working business intelligence service. So we adapt our own services to these very particular needs, and then the same logic can apply to databases and API. So I think that this evolution is radically changing the way cloud providers must think about their own catalog and about their own visibility mechanism. So now I think that like when it comes to our vision of the cloud, the question is not so much how do we sell a compute, it's become how do we expose, how do we operate, how do we isolate, how do we monitor, and how do we focus more on the software services. So this is exactly where a Clever Cloud has built strong capabilities. So that's why our catalog is designed around services. Each services can be operated, isolated, measured, and built according to its own usage, which give to the consumer and to the developers way more freedom, which is particularly important in environments like Kubernetes, where different services may need to be isolated and to be built separately to different teams. So next, and yes. So yeah, we think that one of the core principles of the digital sovereignty is basically automation and basically automatic scaling. Before the cloud industry, infrastructure was mostly managed manually, as you may know. So teams will provision servers, they had to configure the environment, and they had to install a software and to maintain systems and to adjust all the capacity themselves. Clouds changed this by introducing elasticity and automation. But in many cases, it's important to understand that users still need to operate a large part of the stack manually. They still need to configure scaling rules and to monitor a system. So at Clever Cloud, it's something that we have been able to tackle by supervising these services, because automation is at the center of the platform, because we do automate deployment, we do automate scaling, we do automate updates, and we do automate security and also operation. So it's important because many cloud providers charge for a large number of separate services when it comes to monitoring, when it comes to backup, when it comes to supervision, when it comes to log security components and operational tools. And our approach is slightly different in the sense that we do integrate all of these operational capabilities directly in the platform. So the goal is not to force a customer to assemble dozens of separated services, but to provide a coherent platform where the operational layer is actually already managed. So this is a way to reduce complexity. Now, coming back to the notion of digital sovereignty, I'm not going to jump into the whole policy debates like should we go over more regulation or should we go for more simplification. But when it comes to pure technical aspects, we do think that sovereignty is not only about independence, or this is not just an abstract concept. This is the idea that we should give freedom back to our users. That's why a sovereign cloud. So when we talk about digital sovereignty in the really sector of cloud industry, it must allow our customers to choose the services that fits with their own need. So it must allow them to scale, to migrate, to combine technologies, and to avoid excessive dependency on a single provider. So basically, this is the idea to clearly, drastically reduce vendor lock-in, because when you do have a lock-in, it becomes highly critical. Because vendor lock-in does not only happen because the data are stored outside of Europe, even if it's of course a clear component and a clear debate over digital sovereignty. It also happened when a customer becomes technically dependent or when they do belong to some services that are very difficult to leave and difficult to reproduce elsewhere and costly to migrate from. So that's why interoperability is a core strategy, and it's something that we do advocate for, especially when it comes to open sources products. So we do avoid to create unnecessary dependency on proprietary technologies, and our platform is actually based on widely used a standard like Git, or like a standard runtimes, or like a common database, or like open protocols. And so so the goal is actually not to trap the customers inside our ecosystem. Our goal is to give them a high level of automation and of scaling while preserving their ability to switch, to move, and to adapt. So basically to make sure that they can remain in control. So some cloud models do encourage customers to consume high specific proprietary services, and this service may be convenient at first, but over time they can make a migration increasingly difficult. So Clever Cloud, we do take the exact opposite direction. We try to reduce barriers and to simplify operation, and to preserve the technological freedom. And of course, we think that's a major component of digital sovereignty is the notion of security, resilience, and trust by design. We think that security is another essential part of our approach. At Clever Cloud Security, this is not just an additional layer, but it's something that is built in the architecture of our platform, because each application runs its own virtual machines, ensuring strong isolation between services, which provide actually a high level of separation and reduces the risk of propagation between the different kind of like workloads. So we also apply a zero trust approach. We do not assume that an internal network is automatically trusted. Communication are secured and verified, and the platform is actually designed to limit implicit trust zone. So yeah, that's why when it comes to security, updates are also automated, and operating systems, middlewares, and runtimes, and a platform we do make sure to keep up to date the platform. So this is a way to include critical vulnerabilities and to make sure that there is a zero-day incident. So we are next, if it's possible. Yes. So we are mainly used by SMEs, startups, bigger company, public administration, and larger enterprise. Our references include organizations such as Airbus, La Maif, TBWA, Beta.Go, CCI France, and Shopapop. These organizations rely on Clever Cloud to run applications because they do require a high scalability, security, and reliability. But our values goes beyond than just hosting. We do help organizations to reduce time to a market, and so this is then a way to gain more time and then to foster innovation. We do help them to reduce operational costs. We do improve developer productivity. We do simplify infrastructure management, and we provide usage-based billing. And of course, we do reduce hence technical dependency, as a matter of fact, which is especially important for SMEs, because since I am now talking at the SME Digital Alliance, we do believe that at the EU level, SMEs need cloud capabilities, but most of the time they often do not have the same internal resources at a large as those of the larger enterprise, and they need platforms that are simple, automated, secure, predictable, and of course cost efficient. And I think that Clever Cloud give actually them access to these cloud capabilities without forcing them into excessive complexity or excessive dependency. So that's why we do believe that sovereignty should be seen also as a tool of competitiveness to avoid vendor lock-in, to ensure interoperability, and not just as a compliant tool. Actually, of course, compliance matters, data allocation matters, all the issue of our extraterritorial do matters, but sovereignty should also be seen as a competitive issue that do respond to the business need. If European companies have access to a stronger European cloud platform, then they will gain more choice, more negotiating power, more flexibility, more time. It's something that we do like to say. It's like digital sovereignty can only be achieved through innovation, and we cannot solely be followers or consumers. We need to innovate, and it's something that has to be done within the cloud industry. So yeah, that's why we do believe that a European cloud provider have an important role to play, and we are not only offering an alternative hosting location. We are offering a different way to consume cloud, with service oriented, with usage based, by being interoperable, and to avoid vendors lock-in, and to design and preserve freedom of choice. So yeah, to conclude, I would say that Clever Cloud is a European cloud platform that do provide a concrete technical answer to the upcoming digital sovereignty challenges for all the different sort of businesses. And that was my last word. Thank you.
Thank you, Axel. That was very impressive, and I very much like that all of you are talking about digital sovereignty in your deck. Then I will have a question for all of you at the end. So what do you mean, or what do you expect digital sovereignty is? Just to help you through, because I've been asked the question so many times. When I was asked the question many years ago when I was in GaiaX, I gave a simple description of digital sovereignty being the way you regain control over technology and not the other way around. And the way to regain control is when you can trust the technology. And the way you can trust technology is made of 3 elements. Transparency, so you know what you're using, you know how the service you're using behaves. Controllability, so you have the control, not somebody has the control over you. And interoperability. And I think that you are touching all these 3 elements very good. So now it's your turn, Gabriele, with Elemento, and I'm curious to see your contribution into it.
Yeah, of course. So let me share the slides real quick. All right. All right. So thank you very much, Francesco. Thank you very much to all of you for inviting me, and thank you very much, Enrico and Axel, for paving the way towards our presentations, which are incredibly aligned in the vision. So that's something that I like as a European person. In Elemento, we build the cloud above clouds. But before telling you what are the products, the technologies, the amazing technologies that we built with Elemento, I wanted to do a little bit of introduction to set up a common ground to understand each other. My name is Gabriele. I am the CEO and founder of Elemento. Elemento is an Italian company that was funded in 2021. And after 5 years, I can say we are building the right revolution for what clouds should mean. The thing is that in principle, I was an academic researcher. I am a nuclear physicist, and I used to work in research institutions around Europe and around the world. And one thing that we understood working there is that there is one simple thing, and there is no other word to tell that. The cloud is fucking broken. So the cloud always promised to the users some assets that Axel already mentioned quite well. So for example, cloud promised scalability, flexibility, simplicity, and freedom. And more often than not, cloud fails in delivering all these 4 assets altogether. So for example, whenever we're speaking about cloud, we have to differentiate a little bit clouds, which can be a public cloud, so a provider, a private cloud, so something that runs on your servers in a data center, or even edge cloud, so a cloud that is running on your servers or your computers, a lot closer to the data producer that you're trying to consume. And the thing is that each and every kind of cloud that you see here can deliver just some of these assets that were the original promises by cloud technology. And one technology, one trend that is on the market right now, which is multi-cloud and hybrid cloud, still fails in delivering some of them. For example, simplicity. So just to make it clear, whenever we are speaking about multi-cloud and hybrid cloud, we are speaking about the possibility to mix and match private clouds, public clouds, several of them. And in that case, we increase complexity of the infrastructure, and therefore simplicity is not delivered at all. So the question that we asked ourselves with Elemento is Cloud Federation the real answer to deliver on, to finally deliver on all these promises? And the answer is not really, because, for example, we have not really a common API, a common tool set, a common model that allows one simply to interconnect several clouds together and use them as a common pool of resources from one single control point. But in the end, researching a little bit more and diving a little bit deeper, we understood that the fact that no common API, no common toolset, no common models are there is not really true. So in principle, we have common APIs, we have common tools to use to coordinate and orchestrate several clouds. We are just not used to interpret them as common tools that we can use together. So standards do exist, and as well as common toolsets and as well as unified models. And for example, to give you some rather tangible examples, I can cite SQL or any other, let's say, database dialect. I can cite, for example, Kubernetes. And of course, I can cite S3, which is, one of the main verticals for Qubit and was already mentioned before. So there are standards that are common tools that anyone using cloud expects to find on cloud, but these tools can be provided by several actors. For example, to build up on the S3 example, here you can see one citation of Qubit again, because we're used to work together. But of course, S3 is not just provided by Qubit or AWS, that, by the way, invented the protocol itself. Is not even just provided by Google Cloud Storage, and not even by Scaleway or Impossible Cloud or whatever. The thing is that whenever you're using or you are willing to introduce in your cloud architecture, for example, an S3 tool, an S3 product, you have to pick the right provider to provide that for you. So typically, the question before Elemento was, where should I deploy these S3 endpoint that I will use for my cloud architecture? And where to deploy, as you can guess from the flags that I added to this slide, can be even a governance or sovereignty question. So am I allowed to put my data in the US? Is it strategically viable? Or should I choose and opt for a European alternative? But at Elemento, we're quite persuaded that this is not the right question. So whenever you decided to use a given cloud product, you should not start, and you should never start from the question, where should I deploy it? But rather from the question, what should I deploy? And this approach changes a little bit the paradigm, but brings another paradigm which is much more modern and much more adaptable for sovereign solutions. So for example, building still up on the S3 example, when I ask myself what I want to deploy, for example, and I wanted to deploy an object storage endpoint, I have, for example, to define and declare the availability that I want, the encryption level, for example, or the latency, and last, but of course not least, the location in which I want to deploy this kind of tool. And so basically asking these other questions, so what to deploy rather than where to deploy, basically inverts the logic. So I declare beforehand what I want to deploy. And once I declare that in a way that is not dependent on what a given provider I'm already in touch with can provide me, but is rather driven by my real requirements, I can map these requirements to any of the available providers that can satisfy my request. This little request, the little thing that you see written in green font, mimicking a terminal, is what at Elementor we call a cloud intent. So this little recipe is the pristine declaration of what I want to deploy. And that's the kind of stuff that we want to match against all the available providers to decide on which provider to deploy that. And of course, a cloud intent can be an object storage declaration with some crucial values for given parameters, but it can be, for example, a database. I want a database with Postgre dialect. I want to satisfy 40,000 queries per second and a redundancy over n sites, or a cloud intent can be a virtual machine, of course. And whenever we do this little logical jump to asking not where to deploy, but what to deploy, we can start implementing the real Elementor logic and algorithms. So whenever you declare a cloud intent, you have a worker which is able to match that against all the possible providers. And of course, an intent can be MySQL, a database, a Kubernetes cluster, a virtual machine, or even something more complex. But at that point, the cloud provider can be any. And at Elementor, we're not extremely picky in picking just European cloud providers. We're used to work with several cloud providers from the US, with a lot of cloud providers from the European Union, and we never forget about private servers, because in principle, whenever you declare your cloud architecture by means of intents, you should be able to deploy your cloud architecture wherever you want. And so that's the reason why with Elementor we created a first product, which is AtomOS, which is actually an hypervisor, is a replacement for VMware, is a replacement for Hyper-V, and you name it, which is Linux-based, has huge GPU support, supports enterprise features like VM Live and hot migration, and is based on Linux just to leverage on frequent security and driver updates, of course. And then on the other end, we have created Atomosphere. Atomosphere is basically a collection, a federation of providers that can interact with each other, and that thanks to Elementor's effort can interoperate and can be made interoperable. And again, not just European providers, but even US ones, because we have to think that our European customers that are willing to get back to Europe most of the time start being and running on US providers. And so we have to provide this kind of microbility. On top of that, we have an interface which is called Electros, which is basically the web interface, the application interface that is able to show you all the resources and intents that are running on AtomOS and Atomosphere. And that basically means that this application is able to create and compose intents, deploy such intents on AtomOS, so private servers, or Atomosphere, so one of the federated cloud providers, and of course, even create composition between intents. And that's something that, together with Qubit, Storepool, and SUSE, we have presented 2 weeks ago in Berlin, always in the framework of the Digital SME Alliance by means of the Sovereign Disaster Recovery Package. So this is what we built with Elementor, a set of an ecosystem of 3 products at the moment, so Electros, AtomOS, and Atomosphere, that have one clear vision. The vision is that intents should be portable by design, and that's something that aligns quite a lot with what Clever Cloud just presented. We have to be able to enforce some kind of sovereignty. Sovereignty is not just a matter for Europeans. It's a matter for different geographical situations, and it's a matter on which you have to build from the ground up, from the technological point of view, some kind of enforcement to be able to be sure that your cloud infrastructure is always compliant. And last but not least, and that's really the Elementor's vision, we do cloud for real. So Cloud Federation is a reality nowadays. Cloud composition is a tool, is a superpower if you want, and Elementor with its universal language can really build that up. Thank you very much for listening to me. And I guess now we open up for questions, but I let the floor to Francesco right after citing our website, which is www.elemento.cloud. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabriele. And I really liked your presentation, but in general, I like the approach that we are seeing here. So let me just make one personal reflection of what we saw, and then ask all of you a couple of questions. My reflection is that, and who knows me, know that I've been telling this story very, very frequently in every occasion. So whoever asked me whether Europe should look for, let me say, reducing the dependency from non-European providers as a recipe to regain sovereignty, I told them that's not the way to succeed in the digital business, because digital business is global. And I tell you even something stronger. Digital wouldn't exist if we did not start deliberately sharing data all across any country, regardless of geographical borders and political borders. So people that are now talking about digital should know that we would be in the Middle Age if we started creating boundaries and walls across countries. Nonetheless, we fell down in a trap because we became so dependent from technology to neglect the importance of the controllers of technology. What I saw today is different paradigms, which I very much like. So instead of trying to reduce the number of technology providers, instead of trying to raise big walls between Europe and the rest of the world to big in Japan, instead of forcing to adopt European solutions versus non-European ones, I see that you are trying to propose something new that the market wants and is not there. So to me, these are the three ingredients to be successful in the market. Do something that the market wants to buy. Do it before others do it. So be the first. And be, let me say, competitive in the global market. So now my question is, given everybody's talking about digital sovereignty, I have my own view, but that doesn't matter. I'd like to know yours. So how you believe Europe should succeed? I saw a question in the text chat. Irina was asking, what are the biggest obstacles you see in adoption? Well, that's a 1 billion question. And I could tell 100 answers why we are where we are. But I would like to ask you, maybe we start from you, Gabriele, and then we go the other way around up to Enrico through Axel. So 2 questions. How you believe Europe should regain a role in this global play, and what you believe are the biggest obstacles we have today, if any. Gabriele.
Should I? Yeah. So obstacles are, of course, there, because otherwise our incredible technologies that are, in my honest opinion and humble opinion, way better than other solutions that are the market standards. And that's a bold claim, but I'm quite persuaded about it. Obstacles are, of course, there. And the main obstacle is that we have to figure that for new companies starting in Europe is always super painful, because in Europe we have some adoption blocks on the road. So in principle, whenever you are a small company, you cannot start having 1,000 or even tens or hundreds of thousands of people using your solution if you are not producing something that is mass adoptable. Whenever you are creating an hypervisor, an enterprise S3 solution, or a private cloud platform, for example, you cannot expect to have from the get-go really a lot of customers. And that's a huge showstopper for us, because many times for what concerns Elemento, we are asked to provide a number of adoption much higher than the one that we can provide at the moment. We have a good technology, but we cannot sustain that with the numbers, because anybody trying to adopt our technology is, in a sense, blocked by the fact that the technology is not yet adopted by many. So that's something quite distinctive from the US market, in which adoptions and innovation and new technologies are something that companies are really eager to try. And in Europe, that's something that I feel like is a little bit opposed with respect to what we expect to find in other countries. As a matter of fact, for example, nowadays, Elemento is getting much higher adoption abroad from Europe than in Europe itself, because there is more and more willingness to try something new and to test out a new technology. And that's something that, as Europeans, we should understand and try to solve.
Okay, and in one statement, what's your opinion? So what's your interpretation of digital sovereignty? And because I need to pass the word to Axel and Alberto as well.
Yeah, so in my opinion, you are sovereign on your digital and cloud infrastructure and whatever, when any and every piece of the puzzle that's your cloud architecture is replaceable easily with another solution. So whenever you have no lock-ins, whenever you have the possibility to change one functional block with another one from another producer without changing the whole architecture. That's
okay. Replaceability and freedom of choice. Yes, I would add that we need to provide good solutions and not just alternatives. So I know that your solutions are good. Really, really good stuff. So Axel, your turn. Obstacles and your recipe for sovereignty, maybe in 1 minute or two.
Yes, well, I think that like when it comes to the obstacles, I will say that right now the key challenges will be definitely to build credible European alternatives to the GAFAM cloud services and to be able to offer the same level of performance, even if we do have for each services and for each solution, we do have a solution and we do have an alternative. Of course, at the moment, I think that we do not have huge suites. So I think that now, but I think that like one of these obstacles, just like vendor lock-in, is something that can be tackled with interoperability. So basically to make sure that the consumers has the ability to switch and to pick a different kind of services. And also I think that like since we do definitely have amazing technologies in Europe and we do have an alternative for each hyperscaler solutions, I think that the clearer obstacle is definitely self-trust probably, and a lack of a visibility mechanism. So I think that we definitely need more catalogs and more visibility mechanisms to have a better communication on what has been done and what should be done, and about all the different kind of alternatives. So to me, from a pure public effort perspective, I think it's something that there is a lack of that. I know that there are so many incredible initiatives like the text of a catalog that do showcase all the different European solutions. But I think that for a very long time, that was the main obstacle. When it comes to my definition of digital sovereignty, to me, there is two parts of it. There is, I think, a really political debate over it. I think it should be the right at the EU level to put a clear preference in public procurement for the European solutions. I think it's all right, and I think it's something that should be empowered and that we should advocate for that. The exact same thing has been done in the US with the Buy American Act or with the Small Business Act at the US level. But if we talk under a business perspective, I will say that my definition of digital sovereignty is the ability to just to innovate, because I think that like the only way now for Europe to gain its own independence will be to foster innovation. basically. Once upon a time, Europe, we were innovators, then we became followers, and now we are
Followers.
facing a clear risk to merely become just consumers. So to me, when it comes to digital sovereignty, this is the turning point. This is the ability for us to innovate and to find some clearer alternatives, and then to tackle this obstacle I talk about, and then to communicate clearly about our European solutions.
So we'll be sovereign. We will start leading again. I totally agree. We should stop being follower and definitely avoid becoming consumers only or consumed. And Alberto, what's your view on it?
Yeah. So
Enrico, sorry.
No problem. So my view is that first of all, there is my thoughts are really aligned to what the others said. I mean, so there is this conservatism all across Europe, and you remember when people were saying nobody was fired for buying IBM. Now is nobody was fired for buying AWS, maybe. So people try to stay, in the known path, and before changing, they have to think twice, thrice, or maybe more. And on the other hand, they are not. They don't think that in Europe there is enough technology, and maybe sometimes it's true, but most of the time it's just that they are putting all their money in one basket today, and the basket is US technology. So there are many other options out there, and they don't have the budget, or they don't want to spend money in to try different things. So, and the other part is, I think it's about the definition of sovereignty, because there is data sovereignty, operation sovereignty, there is AI sovereignty. There are so many things, and people are confused about what they can and what they want to achieve actually, and that's not a problem. I mean, it's a cultural problem. So sovereignty in general is being more independent. You have to decide how much you want to be independent from the others, or other technology, or other countries, and so on. That's it.
Yes, and just on time, maybe Sophia, just one word on my side, if you allow me. I wanted to wrap up highlighting a couple of things. What you saw today, so in order, Qubit, Clever Cloud, and Elemento, are three different ways of do something that we have been used to do in a very common way by dominant technology players. So for example, what Qubit does is basically data fragmentation in a swarm computing approach, where basically you forget about the problem of where you store your data, because you basically decompose it and recompose it anywhere, anytime you want, everywhere you place it. That's something that is coming out, but is not so common out in the industry. People still believe or still prefer to use traditional solutions for that. So traditional S3 or traditional storage, regardless, there may be solutions like Qubit that are definitely outstanding. Clever Cloud, they started looking at cloud from a different approach. Instead of looking at cloud as a composable Lego box where you can build whatever you want, they said, let's focus on the final purpose, and let's provide a platform of services that simplify the life of companies and developers to focus just on developing and running their solutions and applications. That's exactly what the cloud was supposed to do at the beginning, but they never did it, because the cloud started with that assumption and became to be just an outsourced mainframe over the ocean, let's be honest. So they started from the roots of the original cloud concepts and started to build something very, very good. And Elemento, they did something different. Instead, okay, you still believe we can have common technologies, or we need to migrate from US technologies to European technologies, or we need to choose between one and another player? No, forget about it. The world is going to be complex. Make a reason out of it. The world is going to see more and more technologies, and the only way not to survive, but to take advantage of it, is to hyper orchestrate all these different technologies under a common lingo. And that's exactly what they do with their intent-driven cloud, which again is inspired to the original principles. Now, the final comment is that what we are doing here, for example, with the technology sovereign, with the technology, the Tech Sovereignty Catalog, which is another initiative where we are collecting, and we invite everyone to join us. We are collecting European solutions in a catalog that is not going to be just a directory. It's going to be a place where you can browse, search, find, and use European alternatives. And also with this package that was mentioned today by Elemento and by Cabit, which is this disaster recovery package. What we are trying to do is we are trying to join the dots, because the problem of customers is that they don't know European alternatives, and even if they know them, they see them too small. And even if they are not too small, but they have to integrate one another, they give up because they prefer to use something that is already pre-integrated, prefab, bigger, and everybody choose that solution. So it's a kind of easy way to go. If we find a way to make you more visible, if we find a way to package you together in as many use cases as possible, and we simplify the life of customers that will choose European solutions, not just because they are European or they have a European flag, but because they are better and they are easy to use, this is going to be the recipe. So that's why we're going to play these events in the future, I hope more and more. And that's why we need more of these examples of things that exist, and we need you folks to collaborate together. So Cabit, Elemento, Clever Cloud, I really invite you to not just try to win alone. Alone we are just too weak. We need to win together. We need to team up and try to win together, not fighting any enemy, but try to be big, become big and bolder and lead, as Axel said. I really like that. We need to start leading again. So that's all my side. Sophia, if you want to close it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Francesco. I would like, I see Enrico had to leave because he had another meeting, but Gabriele and Axel, I really want to thank you for joining us today and for your presentations. They were very insightful. And also thank you a lot, Francesco, for moderating the session and giving the discussion a little bit more engaging. Thank you also to all the participants. As I wrote in the chat, we will follow up in the next few days, sending you the recording and the presentation. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me or to the speakers or to Francesco. And for sure, we will have other sessions about this event series, Tech Solutions Made in Europe. So keep an eye on our social media or our website for more. So we will announce soon the next one. Thanks a lot and have a nice afternoon, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you much. Bye.
Thank
Pleasure.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Pleasure.